is fawning over Putin. That's not patriotism.
In July, Reform UK fought the election on a policy to increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2027. Are you Nigel Farage in disguise?
Nigel Farage didn't even turn up to the debate in Parliament today. Nigel Farage is fawning over Putin. That's not patriotism. That is not what working people need. What I've done is take the duty of Prime Minister seriously, which is to ensure that our citizens are safe and secure, and this decision is made to ensure that they are safe and secure.
I really don't care what a guy in America has to say about Britain.
You've said, and the Prime Minister said, that he's crossed a line. Therefore, why don't you do something about the fact that he's...
Leader of the UK Reform Party, who, by the way, did really well in that last election. I've been his friend for a long time, and I wasn't sure, am I supposed to be his friend or not? But it never mattered to me if he did well or not. I always liked him, but it's easier to like him when he got the kind of votes he got. He really took it by storm, and they say he's going to do even better this time. Nigel Farage. Where is Nigel?
Nigel Farage has once again found himself at the centre of a heated political debate, with Prime Minister Keir Starmer launching a direct attack on his stance regarding Vladimir Putin and broader foreign policy issues. The confrontation underscores the growing political tension in the UK, particularly as Reform UK continues to gain traction among voters disillusioned with both Labour and the Conservatives. Farage has been accused of being too sympathetic toward Russia, a charge that his opponents argue undermines Britain's national security. In July, Reform UK campaigned on a policy to increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP.
He said that his way was the way for people to have good, well-paid jobs. Well, it was the Conservatives that started it, but Labour that have continued. But the net zero madness is closing down factories, is closing down industry on a scale we couldn't have even believed. Today, it's the mini plant at Cowley that employs 3,500 people. Before that, it was 1,100 jobs going at Luton. And the reason is simple. The Labour and Conservative governments have said, you must buy electric cars. Do you want to buy electric cars?
Responsible governance. This attack was not merely a routine political jab, it was a calculated effort to challenge Farage's growing influence. With Reform UK making significant gains in recent elections, Labour is increasingly concerned that Farage's populist rhetoric could pull voters away from mainstream parties. Starmer attempted to cast Farage as an opportunist whose policies are dangerous, particularly in areas such as foreign policy, economic strategy, and immigration control. The alliance between Farage, Musk, and Trump highlights a broader trend in right-wing populist movements across the West. All three figures share a common goal of reducing government control, challenging mainstream political institutions, and promoting nationalist policies. Their combined influence has created a formidable political force, one that threatens traditional parties in both the UK and beyond. Starmer, meanwhile, faces a growing challenge in maintaining control of the political narrative. His repeated attacks on Farage suggest increasing concern over Reform UK's influence, but they may not be having the intended effect. Instead of discrediting Farage, Starmer's criticisms may be further energizing his support base, reinforcing the belief that the political elite are trying to silence an alternative voice. Another major flashpoint between Farage and Labour is the government's net zero policy. Farage has been one of the most vocal critics of the UK's environmental policies, arguing that they place an unnecessary financial burden on ordinary citizens. He claims that the push for green energy disproportionately benefits wealthy investors and corporations, while leaving the average taxpayer struggling to afford electric vehicles, heat pumps, and rising energy costs. He has accused Labour of prioritising ideological commitments over practical governance, insisting that these policies will only drive the country further into economic hardship. Farage's ability to communicate his message directly to his supporters, without relying on traditional media, has been a key factor in his growing influence. With Musk's support, he has been able to leverage social media platforms that prioritise free speech, bypassing the mainstream press, which he claims is biased against him. This direct communication strategy allows him to shape his own narrative, unfiltered and unchallenged by traditional media outlets. As the political battle between Farage and Starmer intensifies, the stakes are growing higher. If Labour continues to focus solely on discrediting Farage, without addressing the concerns of the voters he is winning over, they risk further alienating a crucial segment of the electorate. Many working-class voters feel abandoned by both Labour and the Conservatives, and Farage's populist message offers them a sense of representation that they feel is lacking in mainstream politics. As the next election approaches, the battle between these two political forces will only intensify. Whether Farage's populist message will continue to resonate, or whether Labour will manage to regain the trust of disillusioned voters, remains to be seen. One thing is certain: British politics is at a crossroads, and the decisions made in the coming months will shape the country's future for years to come.